Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Mahabharata, first part, chapter 31. The fight with the Gandharvas. Early in the Pandavas' 12th year of exile, a Brahmana who was journeying to Hastinapur stopped to see them. He spent a few days with the Pandavas before continuing on to the city, where Dhritarashtra received him. The old king was always anxious about the Pandavas, and so Dhritarashtra wanted to hear about them from the Brahmana. And when he heard how the bodies of the Pandavas were now emaciated by their spare diet and constant exposure to the elements, Dhritarashtra felt pained. He was especially distressed to hear how Draupadi was now pale and thin. Dhritarashtra openly lamented in the presence of his ministers. Knowing himself to be the cause of the Pandavas' suffering, Dhritarashtra cried, "Alas, how is it that Yudhishthira, who has no enemy on this earth, now lives in a lonely forest and sleeps on the bare ground? And how is that ever-wrathful Bhima able to tolerate the sight of Draupadi clad in barks and lying upon the earth? Surely Bhima restrains himself only out of devotion to his elder brother. And Arjuna, seeing Draupadi and the twins in such misery, must be breathing the hot sighs of an angry serpent. All those heroes and their illustrious wife should not be suffering such pain. Duryodhana's cruel words at the dice game must burn them day and night, and I can even imagine Bhima's anger increasing day by day like fire fed by ghee." Dhritarashtra's anguish echoed around the assembly hall. Vidura and Bhishma both sat nearby, but they remained silent, while the king continued. "Alas, my sons, along with Shakuni and Karna, saw only the honey at the top of the tree, but not the fall. By robbing the Pandavas, they have acted sinfully, and I myself am also sinful for having allowed it. Surely the Kurus will soon be destroyed. Perhaps all these events have been ordained by all-powerful destiny. Yes, nothing can overpower fate. Driven by his own unseen destiny, a man acts in ways he later regrets. Hence, now I am left lamenting for the inevitable. After hearing that Arjuna has gone in his own body to heaven and has received celestial weapons, what can I expect for my sons?" Dhritarashtra's voice trailed off into sobs. He raised his hand and dismissed the assembly. Shakuni left the hall and went immediately to speak to Duryodhana. He found him sitting with Karna. The three friends had enjoyed the past 12 years, free finally of the Pandavas. Although his father occupied the throne, Duryodhana was actually the ruler. He tended to all affairs of state. Dhritarashtra spent most of his time alone, regretting his actions toward the Pandavas. Duryodhana had steadily increased his strength by performing diplomatic alliances all around the world. He was ready for the Pandavas to return from exile. That was, of course, if they ever came back. The Kaurava prince folded his palms and bowed slightly as his uncle entered the room. And after taking his seat, Shakuni spoke. O ruler of men, having exiled the Pandavas by your own prowess, you now enjoy this earth. Indeed, you have no rivals. The prosperity Yudhishthir once possessed is now yours. That great wealth, which was formerly the cause of your grief, is now your happiness. You have achieved everything by the force of intellect alone. All the kings of the world are now subservient to you, and you are adored by countless brahmanas. Shakuni smiled slightly as he noticed Duryodhana listening to his own praises with relish. Pressing his fingertips together, Shakuni went on speaking. Why not pay a visit to the Pandavas, who have never accepted your rule? Surrounded by the Kurus, just as Yamaraj is surrounded by the Rudras, go and scorch the Pandavas with the sight of your splendor. That prosperity, which is seen by both friend and foe, is real prosperity. Let the wives of the Kurus accompany you in their finest dress and look upon Draupadi clad in barks. What greater happiness could you possibly experience? Karna voiced his approval with a laugh, but Duryodhana appeared pensive. I am not sure. I do not think Father will allow me to go to Dwaitavan. My motives would be too obvious to him. Indeed, the old man is grieving for what we have accomplished, and he considers that the Pandavas have become more powerful by their ascetic practices. As he thought of the Pandavas in the forest, Duryodhana smiled. It certainly would be enjoyable to see their poverty and suffering while displaying his own wealth. Gradually, Duryodhana's malice overshadowed his doubts. O hero, nevertheless your suggestion finds favor with me. What could be a greater delight than to see the Pandavas sunk in misery? Perhaps we can devise some means by which the king can be convinced to let us go. If Dharmaraj, Arjuna, and especially Bhima were to see me graced with their wealth, then the goal of my life would be attained. The three of them thus agreed that some feasible reason for their going had to be found. Pondering the problem, they each left for their own abodes, and the next morning Karna spoke to Duryodhana. O king, I think I have found a plan that will work. I have learned that our cattle herds are now in Dwaitavan. They need to be checked and counted, and it is always proper for this to be overseen by Kshatriyas. So if you tell your father that you wish to do this service, surely he will give his permission. As they were speaking, Shakuni arrived and said the same thought had occurred to him. They felt certain that this was the perfect pretext, and they laughed together and shook each other's hands. They decided to go that day to see the king. Coming before Dhritarashtra, they inquired about his welfare, and in return he blessed them with affectionate words. As they sat together, a cowherder, whom Duryodhana had instructed beforehand, came into the room and spoke to Dhritarashtra about his cows. Taking the opportunity, Karna spoke up. O King Dhritarashtra, the cattle are now in a charming woodland and the time for marking the calves has come. This is also an excellent season for your son to go hunting. Why not have him go to Duryodhana to check the cattle? Shakuni and I will accompany him there. I am doubtful, O child. Although hunting and seeing the cattle are both proper acts for rulers, I have a concern. The Pandavas are reported to be living somewhere in that region, and thus I feel you should not go there. You have defeated them by deceitful means, and thus they are living exiled in the forest. Although Dharmaraj will never become angry, the same cannot be said for Bhimasena. And Draupadi is effulgence herself. She is endowed with great ascetic merit and capable of consuming you by her curse. Full of pride and folly as you are, surely you will offend her and thus be reduced to ashes. Dhritarashtra continued speaking, his heart burning as he once again remembered Pandu's sons and their chaste wife. And perhaps the Pandavas themselves will consume you with the fire of their weapons. Or, if from the force of numbers you seek to injure them, then that would be improper, and I know you can never succeed. The mighty armed Arjuna has returned from heaven, and he now possesses all the celestial weapons. Even without those weapons, Arjuna was capable of conquering the earth. So why then will he not kill you all? No, I suggest that you order some trusted men to go there in your place. Leave well enough alone, and do not disturb the Pandavas, who are like sleeping lions. Shakuni rubbed his chin and spoke. O descendant of Bharata, the eldest Pandava is dedicated to virtue and cannot possibly harm us while he is fulfilling his vow in the forest. His brothers are obedient to him and will do likewise. Nor do we wish to see the Pandavas. We shall not even approach them. So you need not fear any misconduct on our part. Although King Dhritarashtra was hardly convinced by Shakuni's words, being repeatedly requested, he finally agreed to let Duryodhana go. The prince quickly assembled a large force of men. With all of his brothers and thousands of women, they soon set off for the forest. 8,000 chariots, 30,000 elephants, 9,000 horses, and many thousands of infantry accompanied them. Carriages, shops, pavilions, traders, bards, and men trained in hunting followed them. And as the procession moved off, it resounded like the deep roar of the winds during the monsoon season.